Hey guys, welcome back. Brian here, and this is the real estate market update for August 2025. And a couple things as a reminder on how we do our reporting. So the first thing is we look at the data. We look at what's going on for the last 4 years in a row to give you a better sense of what the numbers are doing on that space. But then also we look at psychologically what is happening in the world economically that's telling people how to think, believe, and feel a certain way. And both of those things working together is going to give us a better sense of what we should come to expect and what to advise you on. So the first thing we're going to talk about today is going to be the data points themselves. And here's what we focus on. We focus on the amount of active real estate inventory, the amount of actual closed sales, new sales, and we look at the month's worth of inventory. And the last thing we check out is the actual average interest rate for a 30-year loan. So the first thing we want to make you understand is that the 30-year loan interest rate has not changed very much. We look at 4 years of that, and this year the average is 6.88% by this month. And 4 years ago, it was 5.5, with the next year being 6.81 and then 6.78. So there's really no change for the last 3 years. But here's what has changed: the amount of active inventory. So this time last year, there was 5,974 active real estate listings. This year, same month, same time, 6,707. Here's what's important, is the amount of actual closed transactions. Last year there was 1,862 closed transactions this month last year. This year it's 1,792. So the point is, we actually saw a drop in the amount of closed inventory, which also explains why we saw an increase in the month's worth of inventory. Last year there was 3 months worth of actual active inventory, and this month, a year later, 4 months of active inventory. So what does that mean? What that means is we've seen a bit of a slowdown on a year-to-year, month-to-month basis, went from 3 months to 4 months, and nothing changed really any other way. The interest rate's the same. We've seen a lot of activity. It seems kind of the same, but the reality is we're seeing a small slowdown. So the question is why? And the reason why we'll get into in a second when we talk about the psychology of what's going on in the marketplace. So to make this make sense, to make sure that we're explaining what the numbers mean, we're going to look at the market from a psychological point of view. And what we did is we decided this time around we would actually answer the most Googled questions as they are related and relevant to the customers I work with, and say, well, if these are the most Googled questions and these are the questions I get asked most, I assume that for every 5 clients that ask me the questions over the phone, there must be another 45 or so asking Google, what do you think? And so we figured the best thing to do is actually simply give you these answers and explain what we're seeing in the marketplace and help it make sense to you. Because often what I found is when I explain these through to my clients, it makes perfect sense. So I'm assuming Google's not going to give great context. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to actually give you one by one the questions and answers so you can have this and understand how it means for you if you were to ask these questions. Okay, so now we're going to ask the questions that people are asking Google when it comes to real estate. And the first question is, what will interest rates be like in 2025? Now, obviously, we don't have a crystal ball. If we did, I'd be giving this advice for a long time. But the advice I have given is we don't know, but we can only go based upon what we see happening in the marketplace from a psychological point of view. And here's that point of view. There's a lot of pressure from the current government system to drop the interest rates. Now, whether the current body of people who are in office making those decisions agree with that or not is not the problem. The question is, will they comply? I think they probably will. I think they're going to comply with that information and say, look, unfortunately, we've gotten as far as we can get with what we have. We're probably going to have to drop these things. And if they drop it, how will that feed its way into the market? So let's put a pause button on that. Second question, will home prices drop in 2025? And is now a good time to buy a house? Okay, taking the information from the numbers we were reading earlier, thinking about will they drop interest rates, and is this a good time to buy and sell a home? Will prices remain the same? Let's explain how these all play together. We had a bit of a slowdown when it came to a month-year basis on the amount of inventory and things that are moving through the closed sale transaction portion of real estate. But why? That's because we have been so lucky in real estate. Every seller has been lucky. You put a property up in the marketplace, people have got a desperate need to buy property, and they have sold. They've been gone at some point. Now that doesn't mean it's been perfect and that the moment you sell a property it whisks off the market, but there was a period of time where that did happen. And agents and sellers were wondering, well, what are we paying for? Do I need to pay an agent if I'm just going to put it on the market and it's going to just move on its own? And there was a lot of that turmoil. The reality is that that kind of feeling of why things have been so easy for so long, that is fading away. You actually got to do some stuff now. And that's not to say that people weren't. There's a lot of us who have been doing this for 20-something years, and there's a system we run every single time. Good or bad, we do it because it works. Now, that has not been deployed across all real estate sales, and many people have been very lucky in being able to just sell their property by saying, it's for sale, come and get it, and the home eventually sells. Okay, so that isn't happening. What you're seeing is a bit of a slowdown in the respect of the amount of homes that aren't being represented, or more importantly, presented that way. If you're not going to take the time necessary to properly position your home in the marketplace, to properly price your home in the marketplace and make sure the right things are happening, you're going to see a dip in your pricing structure. If you're not really going over what is this really worth in the marketplace, not what is it worth to me, not what is it worth based on the appraisal I got 3 weeks ago or a month ago. I have a lot of those conversations, by the way. I got an appraisal a year ago and it was this price. That doesn't mean you're worth that to the market. You have to make sure your property is presented well. Goes with the saying, presentation is everything. If you're not going to properly present your property, make sure it looks right, feels right, smells right, is right, you're not going to sell for those prices. And that's going to be the person who slows down or has to adjust their values significantly to eventually move. So, to put those all together, the slowdown or any level of slowdown is going to come from the people who are putting their property in the market that aren't really committed to the process of selling and are simply selling, maybe by bad advice, maybe by bad information that they possess themselves, or maybe just not willing to do the things necessary to actually change their economics. It's also going to come from the lack of understanding of what's going on with those houses. It's going to come from the fact of people who are talking about interest rates and giving bad advice there. So the interest rates are, whatever, let's call them 7% on average, rounded up to the sevens. Let's say it's 7%. If the person you're asking a question to has really bad advice for you, and that's the person you're listening to, how you make decisions around all this is that person's stuff. That may not be good advice. You may be getting very bad information, and that bad information is going to circle right back around to dropping price. Where we want to sustain price if you're a seller, and we want to negotiate to get better price if you're a buyer. The thing is, this stuff is all very strategic, and if you don't look at each component for a direction that matters to you and your objectives, you're going to be the thing that gets cut. Okay, so the last thing was, will home prices drive? The answer is yes and no. Now, there is pricing strategy and there's losing value. This is talking about losing value. Pricing strategy might mean the market in this area prices a bit higher. We have to leave some room for negotiation because the targets are always down here. That's different. Losing value is what we're talking about. And the question really should read is, are values going to go down? That answer is yes and no, depending on how well you monitor the first two. Did you get your presentation right? Was your advice right? And did you have this all blended into a total strategy? If you did, you're safe. If you didn't, you might be on the chopping block. It just depends. Not every home is the same. It could be something as simple as the paint color inside your house. Simple things that are fixable for $500, but you decide you're not going to because somebody else should figure that out on their own. Well, you're the one selling the property. They can decide however they want. So those kinds of things are going to affect the value of your property. If that's you, you need to go nice hard look at this and say, did I cover every base? Pretend you're going on a date, and this is the first date you've been on in 14 years, right? Do you want to make sure everything is covered, or are you going to leave things up to chance like, well, it's okay, they're open-toed Tevas. People still love those, right? No, dude, no. Put some shoes on. Like, make sure you're covering all your bases. So having talked about that, let's talk about how can I price my home to sell? The short answer is make sure you absolutely nail down your presentation. Think about it if we were new home builders. New home builders build a set of 3 homes typically to sell the next 45 homes that are coming. People don't even get to see those 45 homes, right? They look at these 3, they tour these 3, they fall in love with this house. The one they buy, the one they close escrow on and move into the next day, they don't step foot inside them until they're basically built and they're just putting the drywall up, and then that is it. You close escrow and you move in. Like, that's the kind of mentality you should have around the presentation of your property. How good do I need to make this look to make sure that people, when they buy this, they're buying it on this dream they have of themselves in it? That is how you want to present your property. So how do you get value in your property? You make sure that you are nailing your presentation. If this is something you're not confident in, reach out for help. It's not a big deal. We do this stuff all the time, but that is how you're going to dominate your pricing structure. So the last question we have on here, which I think is a great question because times are changing, I think this is really fun to look at. What are the best real estate investments of 2025? And there are a couple that I think you should absolutely be paying attention to. 1, Airbnb resales. Let's explain. Airbnb is a hospitality industry that is upset, let's say, the hotel industry, and suddenly everyone has a home and they want to rent it out and they're making all kinds of money. You're probably seeing a bunch of Instagram and YouTube gurus are on there saying, here's how we made 85 figures of real estate magnate business by renting out our home across the globe. But what's happening is there's a lot of crackdown on the licensing and the fees that people get to charge for stuff, and there's a lot of extra taxes added on, a lot of extra cleaning fees, a lot of things are being passed on the consumer. And the consumer is saying, I chose staying in a residence because I love this. This is great, it's a great location, and I don't have to do all that BS of staying at the Hilton or something else down the street. This is a great thing for me. But what happened is the rest of the world said, no, we don't like that. That's not fair for us. We need to jack your fees up so you're right there with us, and now you're competing with us over the same customers. Then it's fair. And what you're seeing is it's dropping a lot of people's interest in owning Airbnbs. If not that, the licensing has changed and it's costing a lot of money to maintain these, or they're not giving licensing at all, and cities are just saying, nope, we're not doing this anymore. No more Airbnbs, no more short-term rentals. You must be renting for at least 30 days or more. And then suddenly the dynamic has changed and people don't want these anymore. Well, the point is these homes are being resold and there's a lot of them coming up for sale, but they're not being marketed the same. They're being marketed as income producing property, and a lot of them are being qualified financially as income producing property. I was actually just talking to a client about this about 10 minutes ago, where you can actually go and apply to purchase these properties based on their income, which means you may not have all the income you'd like to qualify for this home, but the property already makes money. And there are lenders who will lend based upon that business. And so you're buying that business, and assuming nothing has changed in the economics of it, you might be able to buy it based on the income they've been receiving. And you can qualify for this home because it's already established as this own business structure. That's an interesting one. I've seen a lot more of them come up, but there are a couple sites you can go to that market these properties. If you need information, you want to reach out to me directly. I'll send you the websites. That's number one. Number two, long-term buy and holds in areas outside of California, outside of high income areas, because the cost for those homes are much, much less. And we're seeing a huge return on monthly revenues and income on these properties. You can buy homes for $75,000, $100,000, $150,000, and they will return after all costs $500, $600, $700, $800, $1,000 a month, which is crazy compared to the stuff that you might buy in areas like, I don't know, Los Angeles or Newport Beach or Beverly Hills or New York City or Miami, where the cost of a one-bedroom condo is something like $800,000, $900,000, but it rents for $2,000 a month. It's like they're not even equivalent. You might as well put all that money into a CD. Like, that's the kind of stuff. You can get really good returns on things. Plus, the barrier to get in is so much lower. Like, you could buy 3 homes in areas at Ohio, Idaho, things like that for what, $150,000, $200,000, and you're only in it for a certain amount of money, not very much, but the return is significant compared to what you put in, and you leveraged it based on a loan. So all these things. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking for now, and that's just 2. There are a few others. They're a bit more complicated, but they do exist, and they're pretty awesome. You probably have to reach out to me if you really want to go deep down the bunny hole on this stuff, but really cool stuff that haven't been there. They've just not been there. The thing is, the times are changing, and with that, there's a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When things change around you, other things change, right? And so those other things are bringing in new opportunities that we've never had before because the market hasn't substantiated them, hasn't supported it. But now we have more. So anyways, I know we've done a lot today, but I wanted to give you a bit more of a robust report because it's been a while since we talked, and I want to let you know there's a lot more to start talking about. The market is changing. We've been in a 3-year lull. Like, it's been a hiatus transition period, and now we're going into the new thing. The new thing is going to bring a lot more opportunity, and it's going to bring a lot more changes, so you got to stay really close to the news and find out what's going on around you, because you might find you are on the cusp of something great and you have no idea. So, any questions, feel like reaching out to us directly, please feel free. You know we're always here for you. As always, Brian here with the Real Estate Market Update. We'll see you next month, next time, or give me a call. Talk to you soon.